Welcome to Coffee Kids and Crazy.
With Seth and Brittany.
Yes, I'm Brittany, you're Seth.
Uh-huh.
And we're having fun together talking about all sorts of things. So if you haven't heard us yet, you should go and find all the other podcasts that we've done.
Yes,
it's
they are
so much
so
fun.
good.
And they're super helpful for you.
Uh-huh.
And we love it.
And today is a very, very, very,
Very
important one.
Very.
Super important.
It is. They're all important.
They are.
They're all
But
good.
this is kind of like down at the bottom, holding everything together.
It is. I mean, I could say that this is a hot topic for necessity in your home.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in building culture.
Yeah.
But before we dive into that,
We have to go to our
memes.
meme of the day.
Always a good meme.
Uh-huh.
All
So
right.
this is Samuel L. Jackson with no hair. Like they must have shaved his forehead way back.
I don't know what movie it's from. I can't.
I don't remember either.
Unfortunately. But we'll post it on social
It's
media.
like super close. I feel it's on the tip of my tongue. But Samuel L. Jackson staring at the camera with huge eyes, a scowl on his face, and the caption above it says, 33% of your job as a dad is staring at your kids like this until they act right. In other words, it's Samuel L. Jackson as a dad using fear to motivate his children.
And using the evil eye.
The evil eye, the business eyes.
The business eyes. We are doing stuff, children.
This is not the you shall guide them with your eye.
In a good way. No.
Mm-mm.
I don't know what the X-Man guys, he has glasses but
Cyclops? No.
maybe. And he has lasers for eyes.
Is it the one with the red?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's Cyclops.
Okay. I thought that was like one-eyed person, but anyways, that's kind of what the evil eye I think of as a child is, the laser beams coming out of mom's eyes. Like, I'm motivated.
Superman does that too.
It's true. It's
But he
kind of
doesn't
like
have the flip down glasses thing.
it's like the on and off switch though for Superman. Maybe that's more of what mom's evil eyes. But all of that to say that it's more to do about fear and love, and what one do you have that's flourishing in your home and what one is not, because you can't have one
without and
the other. You gotta pick. You can't have them both.
Yep.
Very well. It's probably whiplash if you do.
And does God want us to use fear in our parenting? No,
He's not. This is we've talked about this before in other podcasts, but
have.
talking about the fear of God is really out of a place of relationship, not a fear of punishment. It's a fear of separation from him, not a fear of he's withholding from us.
And a fear of hurting him. Yep.
Yeah. So that was in another one. You might want to go see that one.
And because God is love and perfect love casts out fear, then if God is present, fear is not.
Exactly.
If love is present, fear is not.
Totally. So this is what we want to talk about today. Is really just kind of bringing some awareness to, how are you teaching this to your families, to your kids? And is your home fueled by fear, or is it fueled by love? And what are you leading in, and how are you teaching them to identify and know the difference? Yeah. And so, we were just talking about kind of some different stories and different examples of teaching this in our homes and different things. And we had a situation that came up, Delaney wanted to do an activity, and there's different requirements in the world than there ever used to be. And to go to this activity, it was required that you wear a mask. And thankfully, we live on a farm, and we don't have to go out very often. And so you
grow a lot of your own food.
Yeah, and
you have a lot of room.
And we do online stuff, mostly not because we're afraid of this virus, but because it's the mask thing and the requirements that do feel like they're violating some rights that we have as humans. And so we've minimized our outings pretty much. So she wants to go to this outing.
So she has to wear it.
And she has to wear it. And I'm like, hey, you can go. Like, I'm not stopping you. I know why you want to go. I get it. You've been in the house. You want to see people. I'm not saying you cannot go. But you have to know you're going to have to wear this because that's the requirement. And on the other side of it, she had gotten the message. I hadn't talked to anyone there, so I don't know how true this was. But the impression was if she doesn't wear it, then there's points deducted. which then felt punishing. And so she's like, that doesn't feel fair, you know, and I'm like, yeah, well, this is what you're saying yes to. And, you know, so we really had to break down I want you to make sure you know, why are you wearing the mask?
Yeah.
And she's like, well, because I'm afraid if I don't, we won't get points. I said, okay. I said, just as long as you know what you're saying yes to.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I don't think anyone was trying to incite fear or anything. And I don't think that that's what people are trying to do. I think that's what's happening. But, you know, I'm not here to debate that necessarily. This is my own personal view on this.
And they're using, if you don't wear the mask, it's fine, but you're punished.
Right.
If you
or you can't participate,
you
and
can't participate,
and you may not get points or something like that.
And if you wear it, maybe you won't be afraid. So wear it, because otherwise be afraid. And if you don't wear it, we're going to punish you.
Right. So again, this is the experience that's happening. I don't know that it's in anyone's heart. So I said, this is the deal. It's like, again, like you have to know what you're saying yes to. And you have to know that what you're trying to protect. And so we used it and kind of pulled it apart bigger and just talked about, we say yes to things like peer pressure and different things because we're afraid of something, rather than saying no to something because we know that we'll be protected and loved, you know, in our relationship. And so it just became this open conversation of the difference between fear and love, and what's produced when I'm afraid. I don't want to be punished, but when I feel safe, I feel loved, and how different the two of them are. And we were able to really kind of go deeper into like friends that she's had, different situations she's been in, maybe potential future situations. And we even talked about like in our home, what this looks like as far as when we're protecting love and when we're protecting fear and the outcome that it produces. And it was just a big conversation around, you know, we've talked about the race situation that's going on and the tension that's there, you know, and just the reality of what the riots and the protests. And I mean, the kids were watching the TV when there was some protests going on where we live, and they were getting afraid. And so we were trying to talk through all the different things that are going on. And it's been a big conversation since everything has hit of fear, because I think fear is just trying to be really loud and sound really powerful.
Yes.
And so this has been so many great opportunities to really confront what fear is and how quickly we can get rid of it. And a big part of it is knowing how powerful you are and how to choose. And I've been saying over and over again in this season, you know, you have the power to choose what you partner with and what you say yes to.
Yeah.
And that's what I need you to know. In every situation, when we go to the grocery store, when we go out with friends, when we are in school, when we see situations that are hard, you always have a choice. What are you going to partner with?
Come on.
And I think that's just been like this dialogue of trying to have them understand how big the battle is of fear versus love.
Yeah.
Because it's not just bedtime and nightmares.
No.
It's like a world that is, you know, we're still on Earth. I don't know if anyone noticed.
Right. We're still on Earth. Still a lot of fallen people.
Yeah.
And we have a media that's pushing it all the time.
Completely.
It's everywhere. Yeah. I've heard a lot of people say, like, man, the world is so much worse. Like, I don't know if the world's really that much worse, but our ability to broadcast it and communicate it is so much greater than it's ever been. In seconds, the fear can spread around the entire planet, from whether it's in another country. You can see it on your own screen and feel like you're there in a half a second.
Moments.
Where before that was like, you may have never even heard about that thing that happened over there, and it could not make you afraid because you didn't know about it. And now you know about everything happening all the time. And so I think the battle's always been there. Now it's just become super obvious through the media and all the things happening that this is what's really going on.
Yeah, I remember when the fires were really bad in Reading. Obviously, we had lived there before, so we all were more emotionally attached to that region. But I remember Lincoln crying at night, thinking it was going to happen here because it was happening there. And I'm
You're
like,
2.5 hours away.
And I'm like, it's not going to come here. You know, that's not how this works. But But the conversation and the media and the coverage and the dialogue that was happening, it was like so amazing to watch how quickly that fear became reality.
Yeah.
And I think that's really easy for our
There was
kids to
zero danger, tons of fear.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I think this is the big thing with our, the season that everybody has been in, worldwide. It's the first time ever, I feel like. But it is so loud, and it's stealing our attention and taking away truth that we should be pressing into, which is that I'm not a victim to fear, and I'm a powerful person. And how am I going to operate my home to be a place filled with love? And I think that's for Ben and I know that's been something we've been really going after. Is this is our home and our atmosphere, which is part of why we haven't really gone out, because when you go out, it's like the fear is just waiting.
Yeah.
It's just waiting for you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I don't have to expose my family to that. I get to help us control and know how powerful we are in our atmosphere. So I think that's been our big thing with fear versus love right now for us in this context, because, and then being able to apply it into our home.
Yeah. Yeah. Our kids, like they've watched all of it. We've talked through all of it, stuff like that. They haven't seen it quite as much, but in our own city, we had a lot of riots, people getting killed, stuff like this. It was quite intense. I wanted us to somehow translate this as well into how we actually parent our kids. So like, I remember when I was young, it was just kind of the mentality. So I'm shifting gears a little tiny bit, because that's like worldwide. Everyone's wrestling. Like, am I going to be afraid?
It's louder than ever. And
am I going to choose love? But it also plays out in our everyday lives, in our homes, in how we actually speak to our kids, talk to our kids, discipline our kids. All of that stuff it's in there. And, as you were talking, I'm thinking, people who are afraid use fear.
Yeah.
So like, if I'm afraid because I've been watching the news and getting overwhelmed and struggling and choosing fear, not choosing love, I will translate that into how I parent my kids and how I treat them, whether it's in how I talk about the stuff going on in the world or how I discipline them. But when I was a kid, the story I have is around seatbelts and why to wear seatbelts. And it was kind of, I'm not putting it on my family. It was like kind of the general overall thinking was, wear your seatbelt or you're going to get a ticket and you might die. So it was like, why do I wear my seatbelt? So I don't die. Right. I could die if I don't wear it. And if I don't wear it, I'm going to get a ticket. So I'm going to get in trouble. I'm afraid to get in trouble, and I'm afraid to die. So I only wear my seatbelt because I'm afraid to die.
Right.
And get a ticket. I'm like, I don't want any of that. I don't want you to get a ticket. I don't want. And so, but when I got older, I was like, the Lord showed me, he's like, that whole thing was fear-based. He's like, what if you wore your seatbelt because you're so valuable and you want to be here?
And you protect yourself.
And you protect yourself. You care about yourself, and you want to protect yourself, and you want to live a long life, and you realize other people need you. And so you wear your seatbelt in order to protect the valuable thing I realize that I am. And, we were in Australia at one time. Have you ever seen those signs in Australia on the side of the road about seatbelts and drinking and driving and texting and driving?
I've seen some pretty intense commercials in Australia about this topic.
They have whole billboards. I mean, it's been a little bit since I've been there, but they have a whole entire billboards that are like automobile crashes.
Like images?
Like images. Wow. And it's like, don't text and drive. Or it's all this. I'm like driving around going, this is all fear-based. Like, don't text and drive because you will die.
Yeah.
Which is true.
Yeah.
It's true, but it's not, don't text and drive because you matter.
I remember
valuable.
My mom saying, you see those signs that are like, if there's you put on chains or something, the snow or whatever.
Yeah. Driving through this pass.
Right. And it says, buckle up for safety. It's the law. And I remember just my mom talking about like, oh, I care about you. Here's the law. Like, I'm going to try and communicate in love, but then I'm going to bring fear if that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Which is really how things work. Is like, I'm going to try and be nurturing, but if I don't have the relationship and you're not going to listen, then I'm going to bring law and I'm going to bring the fear.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same concept of what you're saying is like, you need to really shift into a place of where there's value for me, which is why I'm doing this, not because I'm terrified of you
Yep.
or something else.
Yep. What are some other, how can we make sure and really protect our atmosphere, choose love, help our kids choose love, speak to our kids? I mean, we've talked a lot. We have so many notes on this one,
I know.
but we've talked a lot about like, oh yeah, I will allow you to have painful experiences so that you learn, but I don't use fear to get you, to prevent you from having these painful experiences. I'll let you experience them. And then you're like, oh, that was kind of dumb. I don't want to do it. But what are some ways we can do that? Like,
go ahead.
I know, yeah, my kids like to climb trees as an example. So my kids love to climb trees. And honestly, sometimes I'm like, wow, you're up there. Like, you're really
I can
high.
barely see you.
I'm kind of nervous. I'm a little bit afraid. In those moments where your kid is doing something that scares you, and especially if we've been partnering with fear in all these other areas, any little thing they do that's somewhat scary,
right
like
there.
All of a sudden you're like, you're ripping open my fear wound, and I am fearful all over the place. But in a situation like that, you're climbing the tree, you're way up high, 20 feet in the air, climbing a tree. As an example, how would you implement love in there rather than fear?
I think it's a lot about your delivery and response, and then even your relationship prior to this moment. But, it would probably be like, wow, you are so high up there. That kind of scares me. But you have done a great job. But, what do you think about coming down a few branches? No, I love it up here. Okay. Well, I will be really sad for you if you fall. I love you. And I remember, a similar example was Levi rode his bike down this like asphalt, gravel, broken, horrible road that we had as kids. And my dad said, put your shoes on. And he just didn't take wisdom. And he fell. But before he fell, he like drug his toes on the asphalt. And I mean, it was basically hamburger toes is what they were when my dad got back there.
Man.
Yeah. And, we hear him crash and screaming, and my dad runs to him and counts his toes. They're all still there, but they are beat up. And he's holding him, and Levi's just weeping. And he says, oh, son, I'm so sorry. This hurts so bad. Oh, man. What do you think you should do differently next time? And Levi, through his wails, he goes, put shoes on. But this is that moment where instead of, why did you do this? I told you, we bring our anger because really we're scared. We bring the fear because we're scared.
Yeah.
But in that moment, the response was empathy and then asking a powerful question so that you have opportunity to learn and you're still feeling my embrace and you're feeling my empathy, but you're also feeling you have an opportunity to learn here. I'm not going to leave you alone. I'm not going to not tend to your wounds.
Yeah.
But, ow.
And even leading up to that, before it's hamburger toes, not forcing him to put on his shoes.
Right. Which is a hard thing to walk away as a parent.
Yes.
To not control that moment.
Yes.
Or argue or fight or tear apart your relationship over shoes.
Yes. Totally.
Because that's what people do.
Our little guy Arrow, same thing. He would use his feet as a brake.
Oh.
And so he would sometimes drag the bottom of his feet and be like, hey, buddy, using the bottom of your feet might hurt. And sometimes he would drag his toes a little bit too. Oh. And he would just handle it. I'm like, okay.
He's a tank, man.
He's a tank. He is a small tank. But he would do the same thing. And the wrestle for me was, man, I really want you to put your shoes on because I know you're going to use your feet to break this thing. You're like Flintstone in it here. And you are I'm like, wrestling. I want you to wear your shoes.
I want you to be safe.
But I'm not going to force you out of my fear of what could happen to your toes. Are there any times, like, I know we've talked about this, I'm just going to ask you, are there any times, like, so I've taken the approach when my kids are like, Dad, I want to climb on the roof. I want to play on the roof. I love teaching my kids through consequences. So I'll allow you to do the thing I don't want you to do. I'll allow you to not wear shoes
Mm-hmm.
because the consequence will teach you, hopefully, to make a better decision next time. And I didn't have to control you. I didn't have to use fear. I didn't have to force you to do anything. I let the consequence itself, the ripped up bottom of your foot or hamburger toes, teach you the lesson. I'll love you through it. I'll help you through it. Are there times where, like, playing in the road or climbing on the roof, like, to allow you to let the consequence teach you, that consequence is too costly, too risky.
Totally.
Like, if you get hit by a car, I maybe should have
done something
done
different.
something different. How would you handle something like that? Like, if my boys are on the roof, climbing around, or playing in the road and cars are all over. Like, whoa.
I think the choice becomes a choice. Hey, do you want to get down by yourself or do you need my help? Well, we're having fun. I know. You choose or I choose. And then when they're down, you know, off of the roof, that's the example I'm going with. You say, hey, you know, if you want to climb on the roof, you need to ask permission so I can help you. Because I think part of like having kids that are adventurous and want to push the boundary, maybe even climbing the trees, you know, there's a limit to how big you are. It's not safe for you yet. Yeah. So I would love to meet your adventurous spirit, but within a boundary that is safe.
You're welcome to do this when I'm with you.
Right.
When you've asked.
And you know, which it's like building a tree house. Like if you build a tree house that isn't ready for them yet, you don't usually let them go hang out in it. Yeah. Because it's not safe yet. Yeah. But once it's safe, then they can go up there. Yeah. So it's the same idea.
Yeah, the floor is not done.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. You're just walking on the edge of the railing. Not the best idea. So, you know, a toddler trying to run from one car to the other, even though dad's in the parking lot, not the best idea. You know, which is, oh, no, buddy, we're not going to run. You can wait until daddy gets here, or I can walk you over there holding my hand. Yeah. You know, those are different choices that we give because the consequences is great. Yeah. So I think that we have to figure out where can we actually give permission and where is there a boundary that looks very different. But I think the big thing is like when your child gets hurt because they disobeyed you, how you respond to that moment is going to communicate more than just that we have a home full of fear or love, but if there's safety in mistakes. Wow. Because if my dad would have gone to Levi and said, I told you to wear your shoes. This is what happens when you don't obey me. So now, instead of a spirit of empathy and drawing you close and helping you learn from this mistake, I am condemning you for being foolish. And you feel rejected and ashamed of your actions. Wow. So that's how we drive fear home as the truth that is the goal in our relationship versus driving home the truth that love is the goal of our relationship.
This is good. I love it. I've been practicing this a lot. I think we've talked about this in another episode, but that obedience thing and disobedience thing is so huge. Like when I think about some people are like, God wants obedience. Yeah. God's primary goal is obedience. Our primary goal should be obedience. When our primary goal is more like, I actually want you to have freedom and know how to manage it, how to have self-control, how to make decisions for yourself that are good, not just because I used fear to make you make all the right decisions. And I always think about Adam and Eve in the garden and how God's like, hey, don't eat the tree. But I'll let you.
I mean, he could have put a whole thorn bush around that tree.
Or a brick wall.
If he wanted.
He could have put the tree on the other side of the planet.
He could have underground in hell if he really wanted to. I mean, geez.
He let the tree be right there and the snake approach them. Yeah. Because he wasn't looking for just obedience.
Right. It's all about relationship. I mean, I think God wouldn't make covenants with us if it was for obedience. He wanted relationship. The simplest way that I can put covenant for my kids is a promise. And I keep a promise not out of just obedience, but because I have value for this relationship. And I think that's the big thing. Like even the Garden of Eden is God was looking for relationship. He was betting on relationship, not obedience.
Yeah.
Because I think when you really have the goal of obedience, you fuel your home full of fear, because fear works to get obedience. That is the trick that so many parents fall into, that trap.
Yeah.
Is that's what makes us successful. Now, I don't love when people take what I just said and put it out of context and say, well, you're not having any discipline. False. Ask my children. There's lots of consequences that they have. And I am, very strict, but it's not about punishment or fear ever. That's not what my goal is.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah. Even in the garden, when they did eat the fruit and they sinned, and God brought the consequence to them and delivered the consequence for their choice, it says it was so they could not eat from the tree of life, which would permanently get them stuck in their situation, in their condition. And so even in his delivery of consequences, he was delivering a consequence to protect them instead of to punish them. Right. I'm actually protecting you from something worse by allowing you to face this.
Because God's good.
He's so good.
That's why.
Yeah. And
this is why we're trying to model what he's doing, and everything that we can do is God is love. Love is the biggest, greatest commandment that we can have. And so why would you partner with anything else as a priority in your home? That's my question for you. Is why would you partner with anything else?
Anything but love.
Yeah. And what do you need to do to shift from being so fear-fueled to love-fueled? And what is it that you're believing that's keeping you stuck? And I think sometimes it's our own view of who God is that keeps us in a cycle of that fear and punishment.
Wow. It comes all the way down to wearing the mask. Wear your mask so you don't get sick. Wear your mask so we don't get in trouble. Wear your mask so we don't.
And this is why pulling this apart, so you understand, fear versus love and what it produces and how it makes you feel. And that was one of the big things I was asking Delaney. I'm like, how do you feel? She goes, I don't like how I feel. I said, okay. Well, what if this was the choice? She goes, yeah, that would feel good, because there's such a different agenda when fear or love is in the situation. This is in relationship. This is in your home. I mean, this is your work environment. But knowing the difference and what I personally want to produce in my relationship in my life makes me a powerful person. So this conversation and identifying these two things. And willingly, yes, I'm going to say yes to this. When my kids went back to school, I said, what do you want to do? Because you can go back. You have to wear a mask. That's the requirement. You have to social distance. That's the requirement. So we can totally do that. But that's what you have to require.
Signing up for.
Yeah. And we're going to honor that if that's what you said yes to. Or you can stay home. You don't have to do any of that. And they all said, we don't want to do that. I said, why? I said, because we don't want to feel like that. I said, okay, which I love. I love that they recognize how it makes them feel, and they don't want to be part of that.
Yeah.
And I hope that this is first to all the different areas of where fear is trying to encroach in their life, and they go, I don't want any of this. Get me away from this.
Yeah.
Give me the love.
Yeah.
And that's why we put this in front of them and give different examples, and we break it down, because that's what I want them to look at over and over again.
And this is why we bring this in as a culture of our homes, so that when they go to those events or they go to those places and they can recognize
or relationships that they have as friends.
This is totally different than what we have at home. This is not the same thing. I have a whole different atmosphere in my home that's filled with love and freedom, and over here it's all fear and control.
Yeah, that again. If you can start practicing in your home to decrease the fear and increase the love, you're going to be able to have these conversations with your family and your kids. And then the change is going to come, and you're going to start to see them be able to recognize and feel powerful as children. What it means to operate in a spirit of love versus a spirit of fear. That sounds like a good idea to me.
Spirit of God versus another spirit.
This is true. Amen to that.
Amen to that. We want to raise kids with the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
With God,
That's
with love.
it. That's the goal. That's the goal.
Some good things to think about there
There are.
and work on.
And maybe, you know,
Pay
you could
attention to.
you could ask your kids some questions like, what's the difference between fear and love? You know, what do you feel more in our home? What do you need to feel more love than fear? You know, just to get a dialogue going.
Have you ever felt fear from me?
Yeah, like, and so that you can know how to practically start changing, and you get feedback from the best best crowd you can, the ones that you care the most about that this is impacting. That's what I would be doing. So,
and making adjustments according to what they say.
That's it.
That's it.
All right, fear, you're going down.
Fear, you're out of here.
It's time to leave.
Love in. Fear out.
All right, thanks guys.
Thanks for watching.
We'll
listening.
see you next time.
Goodbye.